I think that's pretty much everyone in now. So hi everyone, and welcome to our live offer holder Q&A today. My name's Evie and I'm the conversion officer here at Alliance MBS. So this is the live offer holder event for MSc HRM and Industrial Relations and MSc International HRM and Comparative Industrial Relations. So we're going to have a question and answer format today. So there's one simple way in which you can ask a question. So you should be able to see the chat box that is accessible on the sort of panel on your Zoom call. And so the simple way to ask a question is to just click on the chat icon in the panel, type your question into the chat window, and then we will pick that up and we will make sure that's answered by our panel for you. Great, so now I'm going to move on to introducing our panel today. So I'm just going to hand over to Dr. Jenny Rodriguez, who is your program director for both of these HRM programs, and I'll let Jenny introduce herself and the rest of the panel.
Thank you, Evie. Well, hello everyone. This is a very bizarre thing. I can see you, but I cannot see you face to face. So I'm trying to, if you see me looking oddly in some of the ways, because this is very awkward, but I'm really pleased that you're here. It's a good opportunity to ask questions and hopefully get some answers and some insights into what we think about with these programs. We have a very interesting panel today because we have people who are involved as, in a way, masterminds of it, like Rebecca Roberts, who is our program administrator, and also students in the program. Valentina, Sueta, Rebecca, and Payal are actual students from our cohort this year. This seems like some sort of like powerhouse of women, and I'm really pleased about that. I do feel very strongly that, well, we have a lot of things to say, and the whole idea of today is to give you a sense of what the program is about, what things we think are important in it, but also any questions that you have in relation to the program and what it's like to study in it. Some of the questions I think might be better suited for the students to answer, because obviously, whatever, I'm going to tell you that we are brilliant. The students will probably be more honest. I think that's what you need to hear. But I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about the program. So, yes, take it away. We're using I think there were instructions for how to use the chat function. And you can ask any questions you have there and we'll get going.
Great. I think it'd be good if all the students just sort of introduce themselves. So if we so if we perhaps hand over to Payal first to sort of introduce yourself, tell us a bit about sort of your journey to studying your master's program at Alliance MBS, and yeah, why you chose International HRM.
All right. Hello everyone. My name is Payal Mehta, and I'm currently studying MSc International Human Resource Management and Comparative Industrial Relations from the Alliance Manchester Business School. I'm from India, so I'm actually an international student, and I chose to do HRM because I see myself as a people's person. I love being around people, and it is one field that has always attracted my attention. That's why I chose the course. Now, coming to why I chose AMBS was, the first thing that I did was I went online and I checked the rankings of all the universities. And as you know, that AMBS is ranked as one of the top universities in the world. So it was an obvious choice. Also, the fact that it has the CIPD qualification that we can do along with the course, and we don't really have to leave the building, we can be there. And we get all these extra sessions which give us hands-on experience on, how to, realizing that how to interview people, how it's done, getting feedback on how you interview people. That was a very new thing that I didn't know happened. So all those things kind of led, and Manchester as a city is beautiful. So I think all these were the reasons why I chose AMBS.
Great, thanks. Rebecca, would you like to sort of explain a bit about why you chose to study this program?
Oh yeah, my name's Rebecca, so I'm on the MSc International HRM and Comparative Industrial Relations program. I chose Manchester for a couple of reasons actually. The city's great, it's a great city, but also the cohort on most of the business school's master's programs are very diverse. So I came from an undergrad university where most of my colleagues were other British students. I'm a home student. And it was quite exciting for me, the prospect of having a cohort where more of the students were international students. I think because it brings a lot to your program, getting to kind of study alongside people from different countries with different experiences, particularly in the context of things like seminars. I think as well, the AMBS's HRM programs are very extracurricular. So there were loads of things we could do to kind of expand our learning. It is one of those things where you kind of get as much as you put in, sort of. So my favorite thing about the year was students are automatically members of the Manchester Industrial Relations Society. So we can attend the talks. I think they're already planning on doing some of them virtually in the coming months, but basically kind of talks that talk about kind of employment issues, rights issues in different countries. We get kind of lectures from trade unionists and employment, like legal professors. And that sort of stuff for me was really the deal breaker, knowing that, I guess, beyond our curriculum, there are loads of things that you can do in and around the program to kind of expand your understanding of the field.
That's great. Thanks so much. Greta, over to you.
Hi, everyone. It's so glad that you could join us all here today for this session. My name is Shweta, and I'm a student on the MSc International Human Resource Management and Comparative Industrial Relations program. I think my colleagues have summed up pretty well why the course is really interesting, and studying at Manchester is also a pleasure, really. Obviously, the ranking is really, really high, and for me personally, I studied HR in my undergrad, and I fell in love with the subject, and I knew that I wanted to specialize in it further for my master's. And why I chose this course in particular, I think boils down to the reason why I love the course, actually, and that's the fact that you get a really good understanding of how managerial practices are being implemented in different countries across the world. And I really love that international perspective that it gives you. And as Becca mentioned earlier, the fact that the cohort is really diverse is a bonus. And for me as well, I studied in India. And for me, when I was doing my undergrad, my batch primarily consisted of students from India. So coming here and being with people from all over the world really did interest me, and I think that's really why I wanted to come to Manchester and pursue my course. And as Payal mentioned as well, the fact that the course is CIPD accredited is really beneficial for anyone who wants to try to find a job in the UK once you complete your studies here. Most of the HR jobs do call for CIPD qualification, so the fact that the course allows you to pursue CIPD alongside your studies really is a huge bonus and really helpful for you in your career progression as well.
Perfect. Thanks so much. Valentina, over to you.
Hey everyone, welcome. Well, my classmates, I think, pretty much summed all the important aspects of the course. In my personal opinion, I think Manchester is a very friendly city, like student-friendly city. You have everything pretty much close. You can walk everywhere. There are lots of, in a regular situation, there are lots of students from different countries, so everyone is like in the same situation as you, as an international student especially. And I think the different modules are not only like theoretical, but critical thinking is a very important aspect, and I think you get a really like a deep understanding of HR, so I think that's pretty good. And I think that's it for me.
Great, thanks so much. So I guess just to kick things off before we get some questions coming in. So yeah, just a reminder to everyone, please use the chat function to ask questions about your programme. We've got the panel here today ready to answer your questions. I think what I'd like to ask first is, I'd like to ask kind of all of you about your experience at the HRM conference. if you attended this year. So I think, well, Jenny, if you'd just like to sort of introduce kind of the conference and then hand over to the students and get their sort of opinions on it, that'd be great.
Oh, the conference is basically a 2-day event, and it happens in, I would say, end semester 1, beginning semester 2 in a way, kind of like in a transitional moment. And the idea of the conference is to allow some sort of unfiltered problem solving. Students have already, when they attend the conference, they have already studied certain subjects, and there is a case competition, and there is also a poster competition. Students are presented with a problem that they work out as a team, and half of the team works on a presentation, the other half works on a poster. And I don't know, I feel that it's quite different because, for example, I teach the students, but attending the conference, because I attended, I was not a participant precisely because I teach the students. And it was interesting to see that, well, the whole thing is to think outside the box. The students are presented with case studies, and they have to basically put knowledge to practice. And people who are outside of the people who teach the students are assessing their performance and their solutions to the problems. That's how I can explain it. Probably sounds a little bit, well, formulaic, but I think the students probably have something better to say about it. I think that it's quite interesting because you get to see the other side of being tested by people who are not testing you academically, but are asking you questions about why are you proposing these solutions. It varies on what type of people are asking the questions and what type of judges are asking the questions. And we normally get a combination of other people who are academics, but also people who are from industry to ask questions to the students about their choices. So I don't know, students, take it away. Tell us your side of the conference story.
Okay, well, I'll jump in there. So I think the HRM conference was definitely one of the highlights of the year for me. We got to, on the first day, take part in a panel event where a bunch of HR practitioners and professionals from in and around Manchester were invited in to chat to us about their experiences of their jobs and kind of general advice they had. I think there are several opportunities throughout the year to get involved with things like networking and connecting with existing professionals. I know that AMBS has a mentoring program as well. And I think every one of those opportunities was really key for us as a cohort to chat to people that are kind of in and around the real world of HR, who could give us kind of practical hands-on advice about getting into the field. And yeah, no, that for me was definitely the highlight of the conference. I think we had professionals from different kind of areas in HR, so like more academic sense because we had PhD students, and then people that have been working in HR for years, and then people that were maybe just a couple of years into their careers, so closer to the stage at which most of the cohort was. And yeah, for me, that I think was a definite highlight, because it's not often that you get to kind of engage with so many professionals in your desired field hands-on.
I think just adding to that as well, I think Rebecca really summed up day one of the conference beautifully. And the second day for me was the highlight personally, because I enjoyed the whole practical aspect of looking at the case as a team, and sort of, it really, I think, tests not only the knowledge that you learned from the course to solve the problems, but also how well can you work together as a team. Tests your leadership abilities, your time management skills, because it's not like a normal college or university project that you get. You have a very fixed deadline, and by that time you need to have your poster ready, your presentation ready, you need to know all aspects of your case, and in order to face the panel the next day. So I think I really enjoyed that experience, because I haven't personally experienced a case study like that. And the cases in itself are also really unique, and it really does test how well you've understood everything your professors have taught you over the year, as well as any knowledge you may have acquired before coming to the case study in itself. So, yeah.
Great. Valentina, do you have anything to add at all?
I think it was a very, as they said, a very practical opportunity to apply all the things we had learned throughout the modules. So it was very, it was challenging, yeah, because you have to coordinate and think very fast with a group that probably you didn't work with before, because groups are you don't make them. So it was different people, which is also very good because you get different perspectives, and also judges from outside the business school. It's also very good because it allows you to not only as a regular seminar or lecture, but also more in the real world. So it was a very good experience. Yeah.
Great, that's brilliant. Thanks so much. I suppose, is there anything you'd like to cover next, Jenny? Is there anything you'd like to talk about in particular today?
Well, actually, there are several things. I think that our course is not just us as academic talking to students or engaging with them, because alongside the conference, Rebecca mentioned the issue of the Manchester Industrial Relations Society. I need to shout out to the society because I am the chair of the society, and we have a lot of cool things that happen with the society, but in particular in relation to the students, we also have the student debate. And I do think that that's awesome, personally. Well, Rebecca should be able to tell us more about that because she's part of the winning team of the debate. But I think it's interesting because it's a very unique opportunity that allows our students to engage not just with their group, but also with students doing HR in our neighbor universities in the city of Manchester. Because the idea is that the debate is a competition between debating teams from Manchester from Manchester University with debating teams from Salford and from MMU. And so we've been running the debate for quite a few number of years now, and we've won the debate twice. This year was one of those, and is really interesting, especially because, again, that's an opportunity to put the students up out there to talk to others, to defend their ideas in relation to others, and also to be judged by others. And the issue of judging, I think, is important because in a way, I think it helps to cement in the students the idea that what they're learning has some sort of relevance, and that when they talk about things, they're not just winging it. Even though in debates you wing a little bit, but generally you have to have an informed debate. You have to have informed ideas, and I do think that those are opportunities that we look for promoting with the students. So I wanted to mention that because I really like the Manchester Industrial Relations Society, and I do think that our students engage with it brilliantly. So, yes.
That's great, thank you. I think we've had a question in, Jenny, if you want to take a look at that and
yes.
field that. Great.
Redempta, I see your question. Welcome. I think I have seen questions from you in our Unibuddy. I do remember your name. Under the workplace research and skills and analytic skills, it is mentioned that there is practical classes and workshops. How are they conducted in case we are doing the course online? How much of the workshops will we miss out? I think the issue of the practical classes and workshops is related to the fact that students normally are asked to conduct an interview as part of the template analysis part of the course. And so I don't think that people will necessarily miss out because interviews can be conducted as we're doing them now with, I would say, different types of platforms. And also the issue in particular of that practical exercise is to develop your interviewing skills, which you can do over the phone, which you can do face to face. You could even do it social distancing. because people can't interview each other from far. It doesn't, you might have to shout a little bit, but you can do it. But I think that will not be affected by the way in which that course is structured. The workshops also have to do it. This is something that we, remember that the university is going for a blended approach. And that means that there will be online classes, but there will be some face-to-face contact in those workshops. I think I mentioned to someone in the Unibody, you might have been there and saw my answer. The thing that we're planning for is not to eliminate that, but actually to see how are we going to make it work so that we maintain the contact, but respecting any government guidelines. Does that help to answer your question? Drop me a...
I think that's a really helpful answer. Thanks, Jenny.
Thank you.
Great. Yeah, I was wondering actually if a few of our students, maybe starting with Pale, if you'd like to sort of explain or kind of describe your experience of like learning remotely and kind of doing your course remotely at the moment, because I understand you're not in Manchester at the moment, but you're still sort of learning. So how's that kind of working for you? Have you still got a lot of access to the resources? Do you still get a lot of academic kind of contact with your supervisors? Yeah, what's your experience been of kind of moving more online?
So I left UK nearly 2 months back, which is right before the Easter break. And initially I didn't feel it much because I was just, enjoying the break. But after that, when the deadlines came, it was a little difficult, I won't lie, because I kind of like touching the books and reading them and, going through the pages, and that wasn't possible. But we did get a lot of support. I've had conversations with my dissertation supervisor about how to go about stuff. And we've also been sent loads of mails. One of our deadlines was also pushed back owing to the coronavirus outbreak. So it has been helpful. And I think what happened with us was that once we were done, all the things that were left was things like essays that we had to do on our own. So that was more of what we bring to the table. So I don't think it affected our education as much.
Thanks for that. That's really helpful and useful to know. Does anyone else have any experiences they want to share about sort of online learning more recently?
I think actually in my case, I wasn't that much looking forward to it at the start, but it's been a lot better than I expected, particularly with regards to the dissertation management. So I've actually managed to have more time with my dissertation supervisor during the pandemic than I have previously, because it's easier to schedule things when you're talking about online kind of Skype interviews. So my dis supervisor has kind of given me a lot of time in terms of being able to have face-to-face conversations over Zoom, and that's been really useful for me. I think as well, the key issue, particularly with regards to like most universities in the UK, is how much guidance you're given with the distance learning. And we've had a lot of support from our different module leaders with kind of regular email updates and constant reminders about what we need to be doing when and how we can access the lectures. And I think that's made the difference, because the fact that the kind of lecturers are so engaged and willing to support us in different ways means that we don't necessarily feel like we're missing out on anything, because we know that we can kind of drop them an email and they're all happy to give us screen time if we need to chat to them one-to-one. So in that respect, we're not really missing out on kind of that much of a different learning experience that we would have had in class. And I know that a lot of them have also made the effort in terms of like class engagement. So when they deliver the lectures, they'll have like the chat open and they'll be answering questions and they'll let us communicate with each other. Our CIPD program leader, when she's been running the lectures, she does this thing on Zoom where we break off into little virtual groups. So there's like an automated function where it breaks us off into little groups. So we can chat like we would in a classroom setting in little groups, and then it automatically sends us back to the main Zoom chat so we can discuss what we were talking about. Which is kind of exactly what we did in class anyway. So in that respect, it's actually been so much better than I thought it was going to be. And I do think a lot of the credit for that is down to the staff and how they've handled the situation.
That's really fantastic to hear. Thank you so
I
much.
hope this recording is made available to all members of staff to up our morale over this one. There's an important thing to point out in relation, and I feel I need to say this because one of the challenges that people associate with online learning are issues of access and being fielding questions even from our students when this whole pandemic situation emerged. People were asking questions like, oh, how are we going to access material? What is the library going to do? How are we going to access our books? And the library keeps updating, and I'm sure that it updates the students in the same way that it updates us, that it has been moving most of its resources to be available online. The reality is that most of you, or many of you may not know, but Manchester is the biggest on-site university in the whole of the UK. And so in that sense, we have a large number of students who at one point in time are back home doing field work, for example, or go home, come back. And so the university has that capability that it has developed over the years. So the pandemic is a problem, it's true, but our support for online learning has not been an issue in the sense that, oh, we have to all of a sudden figure out how we're going to support these people away. Manchester has a lot of collaborations also with other universities, so that capability has been developed over time. I'm repeating this like I know a lot about it. I only learned that recently, but now that I know it, I do say it because I think it's important in terms of what people can expect and this idea that it's not that people are left hanging. So yeah, that's something. There is a question that I think the students have to answer because it's a very good one from Leo from Japan. I would like to know students' career plans after graduation as well as the process. Like, when do you start job hunting? Good one. Students, take it away.
I think I'll jump in here and just say that the job hunting process is actually really dependent on what you're looking for once you're done with your course. So the typical career paths after the course would be, well, if you want to continue your studies, you could go for a PhD, or if you want to get back to your career or start your career like me, you could either pursue a graduate scheme, or you could also apply for like a direct hire job. And it's important to know when you need to start actually, because if you're interested in something like a graduate scheme, you need to start right from day one, because I believe in September is when most graduate schemes start getting released, and they're really competitive. So I think you need to just have your CV and cover letter just ready to go as soon as they start coming out. But on the other hand, if you're not interested in graduate schemes and you want more of a direct hire, you would sort of wait till, I'd probably say, May or June timeframe, which is when I think it would be more better for you to start looking into the jobs that are available on the market. And so I think it's really important to have that clarity about what you want to pursue once you're done with your course before you even come here, because the year just goes by so fast, and before you know it, you're done, and you need to try to figure out what you need to do once you're done with that course.
I just wanted to add that we have a very good postgraduate career service, like physically at AMBS, and now that with all this virus outbreak, they're working online, so you can book appointments for mock interviews, CV reviews. So we also have a lot of support from their end in our job search.
So I think as well, just to stressing of what Shweta was saying about the distinction between the different kind of career paths, it is really important to know which kind of route you want to be taking. For a lot of the students on our cohort that had already worked in HR, many of them weren't particularly interested in something like a grad scheme, because grad schemes tend to be quite good for platforming grads that maybe haven't had practical work experience or haven't had work experience in their particular kind of desired fields. Whereas for a lot of them, if they've already had kind of a number of years of HR experience, they might be looking for a direct hire job. I went the grad scheme route because I've not had like a professional job before. Obviously, I've worked in like shops and stuff, but and Shweta's right in terms of the time frame. I mean, there is wiggle room. A lot of the companies release their grad schemes later in the year. It depends on the industry. Some of them were released kind of as we started our program in September. The career service is really good for helping international students figure out which jobs require visa sponsorship and which companies are willing to do the visa sponsorship. Obviously, I'm a home student, so this didn't apply to me, but I know that they were sending out constant updates and highlighting particular platforms. I know that Passport Careers is a website a lot of the international students use. And it's important to kind of know exactly what kind of visa sponsorship you'll need if you're looking for a job in the UK. But yeah, like Valentina said, the careers service were absolutely incredible this year. I mean, I've studied at other universities in the UK, but I think it was very notable for me that AMBS's, because obviously there's the way Manchester works is we have the university-wide careers service, but we also have AMBS have their own careers team. And they offer all sorts of things from one-to-ones where you can go and talk to them about what you're going for and see if they can give you advice. They'll do CV review workshops with you. They run career workshops as well, which a lot of them are done online as well. Even pre-pandemic, they were done online. So things like interview skills and if you do go the grad scheme route, a big part of that is learning how to do psychometric tests and video interviews well. Because obviously there are various cutoffs for grad schemes and you need to get past each hurdle in order to get to the final stage. And I managed to secure a grad scheme for next year purely through kind of the advice of the career service. They gave me kind of one-to-one, like they sat down with me, they went through my CV, they helped me with learning how psychometric tests work because I had no idea. And that I think was really invaluable. And I don't know if I would necessarily have got the same kind of one-to-one attention anywhere else. So yeah, I will definitely like further sing the praises of the careers department.
Just to add to what all three of my colleagues have said, the first time that I went to the career service, I just went and sat with my CV and I was like, I have no idea what to do. I've never applied for a job. And with subsequent appointments, I think I've become very confident with what I bring to the table because every time I went there, I was like, no, I do not know what I bring. And then they would make me like kind of reflect on, you know, what is there, what you've done throughout and how it does help you in your career. Other than that, we also have lots of career fairs. So we have the big careers fair. We have my future festival, wherein there are so many employers who will come and they will talk to you face to face. So, you know, you just get to know whether the company is for you or not. And it's a great opportunity to figure out what you want to do exactly. I think we all went for most of the career fairs. And it really, you know, lets you see what the company will offer in the future. So I think that was very helpful as well.
That's great. So Rebecca mentioned there that you had a graduate scheme sort of lined up. I just wondered if each of you could maybe detail sort of what areas, what roles, kind of what companies you're looking at moving into. If you've got sort of graduate jobs secured, I think that would be quite useful for people to know kind of what roles and what kind of companies you're looking at going into. So yeah, Rebecca, can you sort of elaborate a bit more on that and then we'll pass around to the others.
So just to kind of highlight the timeline as well, I applied for I'd say about 45 grad schemes back in October. And in my opinion, not everyone agrees with this, it's a numbers game. So if you can apply for as many as you can, the first ones you do, you'll do the psychometric tests wrong. And then by the time you get to like the 10th company, you've kind of cracked the game and you know how the psychometrics work. And that's a big part of it for me. So the numbers game, you have to dedicate a lot of time to it, but I spent many evenings sat here doing those little like logical reasoning tests and video interviews and whatnot. So I'm starting with PwC in September in London. I think my official, PwC sit their HR function under their tax. So I'll be a HR transformation and tax associate. I think a big part of applying for things through the grad scheme route is being a little bit flexible. So a lot of companies will have different, if you are pursuing HR as a function, a lot of companies will have different ways of wording their HR or different words for their HR. And that can be a little bit confusing. I know when I was applying for some of them, they use words like people function. Others don't even use people or HR at all, but it's still a HR function. So it's about learning like the terminology, figuring out if you're happy to be a bit flexible about the job title. I mean, I don't come from a finance or econ undergrad background. I was a bit nervous about the prospect of having the word tax in my job title. And then back in, I think it was March or April, AMBS ran a session for us with one of the accountancy lecturers. So we're obviously not on a finance program, but one of the accountancy lecturers came in and gave a session in the CIPD program for us, just with basic accountancy skills for non-finance students. And that was really useful for me. I mean, like I didn't ask for it, but it was there, and it made me a little bit less nervous about starting in quite a finance heavy role come September. And I think, yeah, seeking out those resources is really important as well. So you don't necessarily have to stick within your field at AMBS. I know that loads of workshops and lectures were offered to us from other programs. So a lot of the students on our cohort went along to all sorts of different events, to the accountancy students program events and all sorts of stuff like that. And I think that flexibility is really good because it helps you understand what you do like and what you don't like. Sometimes it's like trial and error. If you see something that doesn't click with you, then you can kind of rule out, okay, well, I don't want to be in that industry. So yeah, I think it is a case of being a bit flexible and figuring out quite early on what you're interested in.
That's brilliant. That's really helpful. Thank you, Rebecca. Shweta, have you got any, what are your plans sort of after graduation? What sort of industries you're looking to move into?
So I'm sort of probably heading in for more of a direct job. So for me, the job application process would typically start once this examination period ends, really. And I'm really looking into jobs sort of in the UK as well as back in my home country in India. For me, I want to head into more of a banking or financial industry. In my undergrad, I actually specialized in human resource management as well as accounts and finance. And I wanted to sort of have the best of both worlds by applying to a financial company in the financial industry, but looking into the HR function in that kind of a business. So for me, I've started researching into some of the potential jobs I could apply for, but they're not open yet for me to apply to. And some of them that are open, I may have to wait because I'm not able to start working right away. So I think in a month or two, I'll probably start making my applications to some of those jobs.
That's great. Thanks. Valentina, how about you?
The same as Shweta, I was thinking of applying for a like direct hire instead of a grad scheme. And I mean, probably most grad scheme already they're closed by this time. So, but yeah, I was planning on staying here in the UK, but now with the pandemic, I was kind of in the middle of deciding if I'm staying here or if I go back home. But yeah, I mean, I would recommend to start like early investigating different industries, different types of jobs, because especially if you're an international student, maybe they have different like job titles. For example, maybe like, I don't know, sourcer or recruiter, like they may be similar, but they're not. So there are like technical issues that may be confusing if you're planning to work here in the UK. And also having your visa, like all the information clear beforehand, that's very useful too. And now I'm thinking my personal experience, I'm like in the middle of figuring it out, so I don't have like a clear plan, but I think I'm gonna start applying for like regular jobs here in May or June.
Oh, great. Good luck. That's really exciting. And finally, we've got Payal.
I am in the same boat as Shweta and Valentina. So even I'll be going for direct hires. And I did plan to, start the job in UK and apply there. But with the current situation, I think my parents and my family would be happier if I stay home. And so, so from the UK and India now, my job market is completely shifted to India. So once the exams are done, that's what I will be doing. But for everyone who's joining next year, there's one thing that all of us did wrong, which was we thought that jobs, you should apply for jobs only like once you're in the degree and, you know, once you know what it's happening, but that's not the case. And we realized it a bit late. So you should start applying for jobs and you should start, you know, thinking about your career from day one. And I think that's really important because you also kind of realize what all from the course you want to take back, how you'll get to apply that to the job. And it's good to enter with the thing that you want to learn everything and that you want to explore, but the master's degree is just 1 year and the year goes by really fast. There's a lot to do in that year. We've got a lot of, it's a master's degree. So you have a lot to do, you've got a lot to learn, but do start applying for jobs as and when you get there. Like, just have a clear career path. It'll really help you out.
Great, thanks so much for that advice. Thank you. I think Jenny's going to field the next question. We've had another question about PhDs, so I'll let Jenny take the floor.
Thank you. I think we're going to ask the question about the PhD route. For those who take this route, are they able to get some kind of lecturing jobs in the university? PhD students normally get graduate teaching assistantship jobs, which are, in a sense, not actual lectureships, because you need to have a PhD in order to formally lecture. At least, well, I don't know about other universities, but in Manchester, you do in most, I would say, research universities in the UK, that's the case. But most of our PhD students, are part of their training, do have teaching assistantships jobs, and that means that they lead seminar sessions, and that they normally, well, that involves the organizing, the assessing, and several things related to small group teaching. So yeah, those opportunities are normally there because they're part of the training for PhDs.
Great, thanks for filling that one, Jenny. We just had another question in from Antonella. So Jenny, I'll let you sort of chair that question as well and hand over to the students when you're ready.
Well, the most exciting thing about being in the HR field is that I think everything relates to HR. For every question, I think those of you, all of you who were in the first lecture that I gave you for HRM strategy and practice will remember, I said that all problems have an HR dimension. Even when we see that a problem appears to be an operational problem or appears to be some sort of something that happened, there's always a human dimension, because organizations do not function unless there is someone there. Even things that are automated have been automated by someone. Even things that are not operating, or anything has a human element behind or in front of it. And so I do think the HR field, contrary to other fields where you apparently think that people are a second part of it, I think the HR field recognizes that people have a lot of agency and a lot of mischief and a lot of opportunities and a lot of excitement. And so when you learn about HR, you're learning about all that in one go. And I do think that that makes a difference. I'm really committed to HR because I do think that those things who bring organizations up can also bring them down. So in the same way that you can create advantage, you can sabotage, you can create destruction, and all is down to human. I don't believe, even errors from machines have to do with humans who did not do what they were supposed to at the time when they had to. And so I do think the HR field allows for understanding of people, and we cannot escape the fact that we are people and we have to engage with people whether we want it or not. And also this idea of organizations as functioning because they do is a little bit naive. I think we need to understand people better in the HR field by focusing on functions that make people increase their performance, or focus on what talent do they have, how do I develop that, how do I address good behavior, bad behavior, relationships. All of that is there, and I do think that is quite also because it brings other fields into it. In HR, it's not just HR. There's a little bit of psychology in it. There's a lot of sociology in it. There's a lot of economics in it. Even when the students don't necessarily perceive that they're taking these specialist subjects, everything that they're learning is informed by other fields. So there's a very, I feel, comprehensive understanding of organizations that you can get through people. So that's what I think is exciting about it. others can chip in.
If I can jump in on that as well, I think based on my experience of speaking to my other master's students, friends, something that's quite notable at the moment as well, obviously it's a stressful period, everyone's going through kind of like quite significant changes. The field of HR in particular is facing quite an interesting kind of transition period at the moment. A lot of fields are kind of dealing with stagnation and problems kind of operating at the moment, but HR is, for better or worse, kind of thriving at the moment because particularly in the UK, the furlough and coronavirus job retention schemes are kind of have been dominating HR discussions. We get sent emails all the time from our careers service and from the Manchester Industrial Relations Society as students with links to webinars that we can take part in and watch. So, I mean, I watched a couple last week from the Trade Union Congress about employment rights and how they're changing, and also the local CIPD branches, which is a big part of doing the CIPD qualification. The CIPD branching system is really useful. So Manchester CIPD branch has been running loads of webinars about kind of the employment, the legal employment aspect of the furlough schemes and how companies are going to phase their workers back into work, and what kind of entitlements workers have, what kind of protections legally employers need to be kind of putting in place for themselves. And I don't think exciting is the word, but it is certainly quite groundbreaking stuff. It's very new, and for HR practitioners in particular, they're especially busy at the moment, potentially at a time where a lot of other people are not able to be especially busy. And I think that sets some interesting precedents for the future of the field, and particularly as students entering into HR degree programs, you'll find that you're entering a field that is kind of at the front line in terms of like organizational change and management at the moment, particularly to do with how the pandemic is handled, and obviously will be handled for years to come, because even if, you know, the initial kind of stage at the moment is very up in the air, the impacts of this period are going to be felt for years into the future. And I think HR as a function is going to be dealing with a lot of that. So I definitely think in that respect, interestingly, all the stuff that we've learned this year, even before we knew the pandemic was coming, it's very interesting to me how applicable it's been. So like everything we've done in our organizational change modules and our strategic HRM modules has proved very useful in terms of understanding of the crisis and how employers and employees are going to have to deal with it in the future. So I think that continues to be relevant for students coming into the next cohort.
That's great. Anyone else want to share what their most exciting thing for them is about being in the HR field? Any of our other students?
For me, I think it's largely the people connect that you get. Ever since my childhood, I've loved meeting people, interacting with them, and sort of as I grew up, I came to know about HR, and it just sounded like me personified as a career. So that's, I think, and that's really what drove me to sort of pursue a career in this field. And even coming here to Manchester, as was mentioned earlier, the classroom being so diverse in terms of cultural backgrounds, it sort of represents how it would be when you're working in a multinational, where you're dealing with people from all over the world, really, and just interacting with them, learning about them, about their cultures, and sort of working in such a multicultural team is something that's always interested me. So, and I find that exciting, just interacting with people, regardless of your cultural background. That's something I really love doing, so.
I feel like the human capital is gaining importance, and as Rebecca rightly said, with the current situation, it is the one thing that is, you know, that is not easy to control. It's challenging because it differs from person to person, and I think the challenging bit of it was what drove me towards it. And as Shweta said, that, you know, there are so many, when you come here, you're coming from you interacting with so many different people who have been, you know, brought up in different cultures, and when you get to interact with them, you get to know like how different your experiences have been from them. And it helps you because as like I do intend working in a multinational corporation where I will probably be meeting people from multiple cultures. So it kind of gives me a hands-on experience on how to deal with that as well.
That's great. Thanks so much. So we've still got time, everyone in the chat. We've got about 10 minutes remaining. If you've got any further questions, we'd love to field those in the 10 minutes we've got left. So do pop those in the chat. I suppose it'd be nice to just ask everyone, a few of you sort of mentioned the HRM conference as sort of being a highlight, but I wonder if you had any sort of highlights in particular over the past year that you wanted to share with everyone. So yeah, we'll start with Pale.
Okay, so as Jenny mentioned earlier, the Manchester Industrial Relations Society organized a debate, and Shweta, Rebecca, and I, all three of us, were part of the team. And I think that was the most exciting thing for me because I, for one, love debating. And this was such a new environment for me because even before we went and, stood there, we put in 2 weeks of hard work. We were all on our feet. We were constantly talking to Jenny and our other lecturers about how to go about it. So it really gave us a lot to think about, but then also the bit where we had to go and stand in front of a room and deliver what we'd learned in a convincing way was a lot of fun. And we got great feedback. The judges also gave some great inputs about how to improve further. And I think the debate was definitely the highlight for the year for me.
Can I just quickly jump in on Cassie's question that I've seen pop up in the chat in case you run out of time? I can kind of speak to that more specifically because I did an undergraduate in international relations and politics, which has very little, arguably, to do with HR, but I managed to spin it in my personal statement. I think it doesn't really matter what kind of background you come from, as long as you're willing to kind of, like I said earlier, you get as much as you give to the course. I do think as well that the breadth of experiences from undergrad really actually add to the learning experience. We had students that came from all sorts of different backgrounds, some from finance and econ and business, but others from like all sorts of humanities and social sciences degrees. And I definitely think actually it's a major strength of the program because people come with different perspectives. So my politics background meant that I was incredibly interested in industrial relations and trade union organizing. And in fact, my dissertation topic is about that in the future. And I know that a lot of the other students felt the same way. I know that most of the students that came from different non-business backgrounds never felt disadvantaged. In terms of preparation, if you were really interested in it, you could read books, you could seek out kind of reading material. A good easy way to do that is People Management Magazine, which is the one that we all have subscriptions to automatically through the CIPD program. I wouldn't necessarily strain yourself feeling like you need to learn everything. I knew very little about HR before I started, and now within the space of less than a year, I feel like I'm in a very kind of confident position, and I'm sure that the same would be said for any other student doing the course. So definitely don't feel like you're going to be joining at any kind of particular disadvantage just because you don't come from a business or finance background.
Thank you, Rebecca. That's great. I think, yeah, Jenny, as sort of program director, yeah, maybe you could comment on sort of the backgrounds that students come from and sort of parts of the course that they maybe find more difficult. Maybe you can sort of comment on that as well.
I think Rebecca's position on the matter summarizes some of the, I would say, some of the concerns that students have, which shouldn't be a concern. This issue of diversity is, I think, at the heart of the program, and one of the things that we like about it. Why speak to the converted? We can do that without bringing students who are actually interested in HR. Actually, we want to convert more students into HR. I think the most difficult part of it, realistically, is this transition from going to an undergraduate or from coming from an undergraduate background from previous education that does not necessarily demand the same type of demand that postgraduate level has. And I don't know whether that makes sense. The students might be able to give more insight on that. But what I find, for example, is that the students are normally very concerned about, is my level of thinking, elaborate enough? Am I going to get this? Am I in the right path? And that is something that I would say is difficult, not necessarily in real terms, but it is difficult because it's a concern that any student who's engaging in postgraduate programs would have. It's a new adventure in a way, it's a new phase, and unless you have done postgraduate before, and in the case of most of our students, they haven't, it is a different, I would say, a different setting. So I find that perhaps it's a practical challenge. I would say that without a doubt, in my experience, it's overcome very quickly. Students do develop a sense that, oh, okay, you click into things and you start to find your strengths, and that's part of the growing that happens intellectually as part of a postgraduate program. I would say that, as Rebecca said, the issue of preparation, I wouldn't sweat that because, well, all of our offer holders at one point do get a list of recommended readings that are quite diverse. I think also in the Unibody event that we run, I recommended several readings, and I'm happy to do that generally to people based on either things that interest them or HRM or international HRM interests more generally or more specifically. It is a good idea. I always tell the students, if you need a book to hold on to sleep at night and feel safe, there are plenty that I can recommend. I wouldn't necessarily say that you need to come with any specific knowledge because you're coming to learn about it. And also, if you know someone who works, if you have worked, or if you live in this planet and have at any point read the news, HR problems will sound familiar once we speak to you about them. And so that's part of the process. And so I do sometimes think that it's a good idea not to sweat too much the preparation, because you can come with fresh eyes and face a problem and say, well, actually, I think about this way, maybe I should start thinking about it in this other way. So I wouldn't necessarily worry about that, but there is material that we normally give students if they want to read something before they start the program. Sorry, as I'm doing this, I'm trying to read also some comments in the chat. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that it is challenging, like getting to this level of critical thinking, but I think it's also one of the most gratifying things because you get to a point when you start looking at things in other ways, which is very good. So it's like this bulb illuminates, and it's very good. Also, as they mentioned earlier, HR is in pretty much every aspect of an organization. So it doesn't matter your previous field of study or whatever. I think you can always relate and learn.
That's great, thanks. Shweta, do you have anything to add about kind of how you adapted to the program, and if there were any sort of challenges that you found and things that kind of maybe helped you prepare for that at all?
I think for me, this was one of my major concerns coming into the course, is really the change in the education system and sort of the way people learn. I remember having a chat with Becca earlier in the year, and we were just talking about how the education system in these two countries really are different. And I remember thinking that I wasn't sure if I would be able to do well in the course or if I would be able to adapt and sort of change the way I learn in order to do well on the course. And I remember that thinking back on it now, I mean, it's just that when you're coming to a master's program in the UK, you are expected to do a lot of independent studying. And that was, I think, the one thing that really concerned me, because that was completely different from how the course was structured in my undergraduate degree. But I think you'll find that when you do come here and when you start accessing the resources that are available to you and sort of just reaching out for help whenever you do feel like you are stuck, the staff are really friendly and approachable, and you can always ask them any queries that you may have, which is something that I did a lot. And as a result of it, I was able to finally adjust and sort of change the way I learn and study. And if I could tell myself one thing, it would just be to not stress out too much about how to sort of tailor the way I study, because I think once you come here, you will be able to transition and sort of do what is expected of you over here.
That's great. Thanks so much. So yeah, we're just sort of coming up to the end of the session now. I'd like to thank everybody for taking part today. So to Jenny for chairing the session, and to our 4 students who've offered some incredibly valuable insights into their experience of the programme, what their plans are next, and yeah, everything that they've gained from studying their masters here. And I'd like to also thank all of you, all of our offer holders, for joining today. It's been fantastic to have some of your questions. We really appreciate your time, and we hope that you found the event useful and you found out lots of information about your programme. So we hope everyone stays safe, and we can't wait to welcome you to Manchester very soon.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks very much, everyone. Take care.